Welcome to Chasing Power. I'm your host, Charles Denyer, and tonight, the story of how Barack Obama sold America on hope and built one of the most calculated political machines in modern history. A machine powered not just by soaring rhetoric, but by data, discipline, and a campaign operation that quietly rewrote the playbook on how to defy the odds and win a presidential election and to be called President of the United States.
We are one people, all of us pledging allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, all of us defending the United States of America.
I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
Folks with disabilities all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Welcome to Chasing Power, the path to Pennsylvania Avenue, a Charles Denyer Productions podcast.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The audacity of hope. America, you've vindicated that hope.
And we will make America great again.
Before Barack Obama ever gave a speech that moved a nation,
we hold these truths to be self-evident.
and he gave quite a few electrifying speeches. He lived a life of dislocation, a boy with no fixed center, learning to adapt, to listen, and to translate. His story begins not with privilege or legacy, but with contrast. Born in Honolulu, raised between Hawaii and Indonesia, shaped by cultures that rarely touched yet defined him equally. His early years were not as studied in political ambition, but in cultural negotiation. In Hawaii, he was American, but not the typical American boy of his time. In Indonesia, he was a foreigner, yet familiar enough with Indonesian culture to feel comfortable. According to Obama, his mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, raised him to see the world through empathy, not resentment, thus inheriting the instinct to listen and learn and carefully study your surroundings. But that constant movement across borders, continents, cultures, and identities also taught him something harsher: the art of belonging without belonging. He was always an outsider, yet also an observer, always translating, never fully anchored. That outsider's perspective became his power that helped him define who he was and what he thought of the world. While others defined themselves by place or tribe, Obama defined himself by curiosity, a chameleon, not because he lacked conviction, but because he understood the world's complexity demanded flexibility. His father's absence, a Kenyan economist who visited once and vanished, became both wound and fuel. Obama learned early that presence cannot always be chosen, but meaning can be created from absence. His search for identity became his education in empathy. He didn't grow up insulated from contradiction. He was contradiction, and he learned to harmonize it. At school in Honolulu, surrounded by wealth and whiteness, he absorbed what privilege looked like and how it protected those who could claim it. Yet he never resented it. He studied it, and he began to understand power, not as an inheritance, but as a system, something built, managed, and replicated. That curiosity followed him to Occidental College, then Columbia University, where his intellectual restlessness deepened. He wasn't searching for ideology. He was searching for integration, a way to unite the idealism of his white mother, the pragmatism of his white grandfather, and the absence of his black father into something coherent. After college, Obama moved to the south side of Chicago, a decision that made zero sense to the careerists around him. He could have gone corporate or academic. Instead, he chose organizing. His job, a community organizer. His task, help rebuild communities devastated by factory closures, unemployment, and government neglect. Very quickly, he learned the hardest truth of democracy, that real change does not begin in Washington, D.C. It begins at home, and in those years, Obama found success, but also failure. People didn't always trust him, and progress, well, it was incremental. At Harvard Law School, he turned his childhood experiences into leverage. He wasn't the loudest or most ideological student, but he was one of the more effective. In 1990, he made history as the first black president of the Harvard Law Review, not by demanding power, but by mastering coalition. He built consensus across ideological lines. Conservatives actually respected his intellect. Progressives admired his grace. And it was there he began to realize something very profound. Leadership is not about asserting control. It's about creating alignment. By the time he returned to Chicago after graduation, Obama had become a hybrid, part idealist, but also part strategist. He had learned empathy as a discipline and patience as a weapon, and he had seemed to find his voice. He was rational, lyrical, and unthreatening, but determined. Barack Obama's political awakening did not begin with ambition. It began with reflection. In 1995, long before the crowds and the cameras, he published Dreams from My Father. Part memoir, part meditation, part identity excavation. It was not a political book. It was a philosophical one, written by a man still mapping his own contradictions. It spoke of race not as a slogan, but as a struggle, of belonging as both a wound, but also a gift. From 1996 to 2004, he climbed the ladder of Illinois politics with quiet calculation. He was not a bomb thrower. He was a builder. In the Illinois State Senate, he focused on pragmatic issues, ethics reform, healthcare, education, the kind of policy work that bored headline writers but impressed insiders. He made allies across party lines, even as he built a reputation as being competent. But ambition, like gravity, always wins. In 2000, Obama challenged Bobby Rush,
I think that
a popular black congressman and former Black Panther, for his U.S. House seat. The loss was brutal. Rush painted him as an outsider, too polished, too Harvard, too removed from the community he claimed to represent. Obama lost badly, and that defeat humbled him. But the humiliation was also a recalibration. He learned that timing matters more than talent, that message must meet moment, and that power, to be durable, must be built, not borrowed. So he went underground, politically speaking. Back to community work, back to study, and back to patience. He recalibrated his ambition, not as hunger, but as preparation. Then came 2004, the Democratic National Convention in Boston in a primetime slot that introduced Obama to millions of Americans.
Tonight, we gather to affirm the greatness of our nation.
In just 17 minutes, he was transformed from an obscure state senator to a national phenomenon. There's not a liberal America and a conservative America. There's the United States of America, he declared. It wasn't just rhetoric. It was identity reframed, an argument that unity could be political power. Look, make no mistake, the speech was lightning in a bottle. But it was not accidental. It was the culmination of years of studying power, how it's spoken, how it's shared, and how it's controlled. Obama had turned introspection into narrative, narrative into strategy, and strategy into momentum. By the time his speech ended, he wasn't just a rising star. He was a symbol, and symbols are far harder to defeat than candidates. The dreamer from Honolulu had become the architect of his own mythology, and in that moment, the political revolution built on hope began its path to the presidency. Every generation produces one political figure who doesn't just ride the wave, they become it. Think of Roosevelt. Think of Reagan. For Barack Obama, that wave began quietly, years before anyone outside Illinois knew his name. The 2004 Democratic National Convention had made him a national symbol, but symbols without structure fade. Obama clearly understood that symbolism must evolve into strategy, and he began building a campaign, not just for an office, but for a moment in history. In 2005, newly elected to the United States Senate, Obama arrived in Washington already carrying a gravitational field of expectations. The city's political veterans treated him as an anomaly. Articulate, ambitious, a nice guy, and unscarred. Some admired him. Many resented him. He was the new face of the party, but not yet its power. The temptation was to rise too fast, but Obama carefully resisted. He kept his profile deliberate, selective interviews, measured statements, no missteps. To his team, this restraint was intentional. Don't let the myth age before the movement begins. Washington thrives on overexposure, and Obama very carefully weaponized scarcity. Every appearance mattered because he refused to appear everywhere. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party was adrift. George W. Bush's presidency was bleeding credibility. Iraq, Katrina, and economic unease had eroded faith in the system. Americans weren't just tired of policy failure, they were tired of the emotional exhaustion of politics. Into that fatigue, enter Barack Obama, who offered the complete opposite. He offered composure, elegance, and a kind of intellectual optimism that somewhat felt extinct at that time, according to voters. When Barack Obama announced his candidacy,
I stand before you today to announce
for president on a freezing morning on February 10th, 2007, in Springfield, Illinois, he chose his stage with ultimate precision, the steps of the old state capitol, where Abraham Lincoln had once warned of a house divided. But behind the inspiration was calculation. The campaign message, change we can believe in, sounded simple, even idealistic. Beneath it was something far more sophisticated. It wasn't policy, it wasn't psychology. It offered a country fractured by war and cynicism, not an agenda, but therapy. The illusion that hope could heal, however real or imaginative that hope would be. And as his words began to echo beyond Springfield, something else became clear. His rise wasn't just historic, it was dangerous. The threats came early, fierce and racially charged, forcing the United States Secret Service to assign Obama protection in May 2007, the earliest of any presidential candidate in history. It was a grim acknowledgement of both his significance and the risk he represented. He was no longer just a candidate. He was a symbol powerful enough to inspire millions, but also to enrage millions more opposing his candidacy. But to get to the presidency, he'd have to get through Hillary Clinton first, and that's next. Before the country met President Barack Obama, it witnessed a political civil war inside the Democratic Party, a collision between inevitability and insurgency, between the machinery of power and the movement that would upend it. For decades, the Clinton name had been shorthand for dominance. Hillary Clinton entered the 2008 presidential race as the early huge favorite and clear presumptive nominee. She was the establishment's anchor, the heir to her husband's presidency. She had the money, the donors, the consultants, and the built-in network of loyal operatives who treated her candidacy not as a campaign, but as a coronation deferred. The story had already been written. All she had to do was claim it. Then came Barack Obama, a first-term senator with almost nothing. No political lineage, no deep-pocketed infrastructure, a somewhat of a strange name, no army of loyalists, and yet he possessed what every opponent underestimates until it's too late: momentum. His timing was surgical. The nation was tired of two wars. They were cynical and desperate for a new political language. Obama didn't just promise change. He gave permission to believe that politics could still feel pure. His run for the presidency wasn't about rebellion. It really wasn't. It rather a soft-spoken coup. From day one, the Democratic establishment misread him. To them, Obama was a novelty, inspiring, nice guy, but unseasoned, a symbol rather than a strategist. And maybe years down the road, he could run a real and respectable campaign for president, but not now with the Clinton juggernaut fast approaching. To his team, that perception was their opening. David Plouffe and David Axelrod, along with their inner circle, built a movement disguised as humility, a campaign that projected warmth but operated with military precision. They understood that Clinton's campaign, though vast, was also heavy and bloated, built on consultants, big corporate donors, and the old rules of power. Obama's campaign, in their eyes, would be fast, lean, and adaptive. Clinton's operation ran like a fortress. Obama's ran like a hive. Every volunteer became an amplifier. Every donor became a participant. Every email was designed not just to inform, but to activate. While her campaign chased big checks and TV time, his team weaponized data, turning voter files and social networks into a living map of influence. And while the Clintons were still playing politics, Obama, well, he was playing psychology. Also, his team understood something profound. The 2008 nomination wouldn't be decided by charisma alone. It would be decided by delegate math. The rules of the Democratic primary rewarded precision, not just popularity. So, while Hillary Clinton poured resources into big symbolic states like California, New York, and Ohio, Obama quietly targeted caucuses in smaller states where the delegate yield was higher. It was political insurgency by spreadsheet, a war of attrition fought in counties no one had ever cared about before. Then came Iowa.
But on this January night, at this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said we couldn't do.
It was supposed to be Hillary Clinton's proving ground, the moment she crushed the myth of Obama's momentum. Instead, it became the beginning of her unraveling. Obama's victory speech that night, measured and controlled, didn't just announce a win, it announced a new political order. The myth of Clinton's inevitability shattered on live television. Her campaign slogan descended into crisis as her strategists clashed. Her messaging collapsed, and her slogans shifted, almost weekly. Ready for change, experience you can count on, solutions for America. None of it stuck. Meanwhile, Obama's brand only sharpened. Yes, Clinton came back in New Hampshire and won New Hampshire, but still, it did not matter. The momentum was so strong at that point. Change we can believe in for Obama became both mantra and mirror. People saw in him what they needed to see. His ambiguity was deliberate. His message wasn't about policy, it was about identity. And by February, Hillary Clinton's fundraising advantage had vanished. Obama was outraising her online month after month, turning $25 donations into $1 billion insurgency. His team's digital architecture tracked donors, tested messages, and optimized engagement in real time. They weren't just winning votes, they were hacking belief. Clinton's team fought back with the force of habit.
What Senator Obama has said, because as soon as he is confronted on it, he says that's not what he meant.
Attack ads, debate traps, surrogates, and subtle digs questioning Obama's experience. But every time they attacked, he absorbed it. He stayed calm, he stayed measured, and he stayed presidential. His restraint became contrast. While Clinton looked angry, Obama, he looked calm and cool, almost inevitable. And the bitterness grew. Bill Clinton's temper flared in public.
I mean, when's the last time we elected a president based on 1 year of service in the Senate before he started running?
Hillary's composure cracked in moments of exhaustion and disbelief. Race even entered the bloodstream of the campaign. Coded language, insinuations, commentary disguised as analysis. Every time it veered that direction, Obama redirected it back to unity, refusing to play the part his opponents had scripted for him. And beneath it all, his strategy remained incredibly consistent. Discipline above all. No leaks, no chaos, no mixed messages. Stay the path, stay the course. His campaign operated with the precision of a private intel firm. They had studied Hillary Clinton's playbook and rewritten it in real time. By spring, the Democratic Party was split into two emotional tribes: the pragmatists who trusted Hillary and the idealists who believed in Barack Obama. And the decisive moment came not in a single knockout blow, but through attrition. Obama methodically bled her campaign dry, delegate by delegate, state by state. He didn't need to humiliate her. He just needed to outlast her. By June, the math was impossible to ignore, and Hillary Clinton officially suspended her presidential campaign.
As I suspend my campaign, I congratulate him on the victory he has won and the extraordinary race he has run. I endorse him and throw my full support behind him.
In simpler terms, it was over for her. Barack Obama had just done the unthinkable, beating one of the most formidable political machines of the modern era. Not by force, but by finesse and attrition. And when it was over, the revolution didn't just belong to him. It belonged to everyone who realized he had rewritten the rules, and everyone still trapped in the system he'd quietly made obsolete. By the fall of 2008, America was exhausted, economically, emotionally, and probably spiritually. 8 years of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney had left the country mired in war, debt, and disillusionment. The financial system was collapsing in real time. Iraq had become a quagmire, and Afghanistan a forgotten wound. The Bush administration's approval ratings had cratered below 30%.
You're not very popular
Into that fatigue stepped Barack Obama, calm, unflappable, the antithesis of everything the last 8 years had represented. His message, change we can believe in, well, that was no longer campaign rhetoric. It became national therapy. Voters didn't want another ideology. They wanted a reset button. John McCain, a decorated war hero and respected senator, entered the presidential race with dignity, but also carried the burden of timing. In any other era, his brand of straight talk and independence might have resonated, but in 2008, the Republican brand was political poison. McCain tried to distance himself from Bush, but his record tethered him into the administration's failures. Every policy debate became a referendum on a presidency that had already collapsed. Furthermore, McCain's choice of a running mate, Sarah Palin, the governor of Alaska,
I had the privilege of living most of my life in a small town. I was just your average hockey mom and signed up for the PTA.
Proved highly controversial as Palin had very limited national experience, especially in foreign policy, and her rapid rise raised serious questions about her readiness. And Obama's campaign understood this perfectly. Their strategy was not to attack John McCain or Sarah Palin directly. It was to associate him and her with the exhaustion Americans already felt. Each ad, each debate, each line reinforced the same psychological message. McCain was a good, decent man, but he represented the past. And as for Obama, he represented the future. Then came the global financial crisis, Wall Street imploding, markets freezing, and fear metastasizing into anger. As John McCain suspended his campaign and flailed for direction, Obama projected composure. While others panicked, he looked presidential. His calm wasn't just demeanor, it was weaponized contrast. The image of steadiness became the story. Voters looked at Obama and saw control. They looked at McCain and saw chaos. In politics, perception is performance. On Election Day, the result wasn't just victory, it was vindication, and it was a landslide. Barack Obama won with a whopping 365 electoral votes to McCain's 173, and almost winning by close to 10 million in the popular vote. He also carried states Democrats hadn't touched in decades: Virginia, Indiana, North Carolina. His political movement had transcended party, region, and race. In the end, it was not just a political landslide. It was arguably a cultural one. The rejection of 8 years that were defined by war and fear and anxiety, replaced by the audacity of hope. Bush and Cheney had left America weary. Obama offered redemption.
He will be the first African-American president.
And the nation, desperate to believe again, took it. Up next, part 2 of Barack Obama, the Obama presidency. From hope and change,
I stand before you again tonight,
to Trump and his tweets and everything in between. Thanks for listening to Chasing Power, the path to Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm your host, Charles Denyer.
Before we wrap up, don't miss out on Charles's 2 other powerhouse podcasts. Want weekly intel on the national security threats most never see? Threat Level Red delivers hard-hitting updates on rogue nations, global conflicts, cyber warfare, and more, all revealed with unflinching clarity. And for leaders navigating today's digital world, The Brief with Charles Denyer is your trusted guide to cybersecurity, compliance, risk, and AI. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Chasing Power, the path to Pennsylvania Avenue is a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. All opinions expressed are those of the host and do not reflect the official positions of any political organization, government agency, or private institution. This podcast is for news reporting, commentary, and criticism. We use excerpts, clips, and quotations from political events and other copyrighted works under the Fair Use Doctrine. All rights in those works remain with their respective owners. The views expressed are our own and do not represent any other entity.